The air in sublevel 9 of Nexus Prime reeked of desperation and disinfectant. Harsh white lights buzzed overhead, casting sickly shadows across the concrete floor, where beings from a dozen worlds stood in chains. Zero pressed her bare feet against the cold platform, feeling the vibrations of the crowd's restless energy through the metal grating. Next lot, the auctioneer's voice crackled through ancient speakers. Silvani, female, age 24, lot 47. Snickers rippled through the assembled buyers. Zira kept her chin level, violet eyes fixed on a point just above the crowd's heads. Her silver-blue skin seemed to glow under the lights. But her small frame, barely reaching the shoulders of most Silvani, made her an object of mockery rather than desire. "Look at that tiny thing," someone called out. "What's she good for? Cleaning under furniture. For 8, if she's lucky," another voice joined in. "Defective goods, that one." The auctioneer tapped his gavel impatiently. Starting bid, 5 credits, anyone? 5 credits for 2 credits, a gruff Cathari trader interrupted, and that's generous for damaged merchandise. Heat flushed through Zira's cheeks, but she didn't flinch. She'd learned long ago that reaction only fed their amusement. Instead, she cataloged the room with careful glances. 53 buyers, mostly male, mostly species that valued physical strength over intelligence. The exit sat 40 meters away, past a gauntlet of armed guards. The Cathari trader who'd bid was known for working his acquisitions to death in the asteroid mines. 2 credits going once, the auctioneer called half-heartedly. Zero closed her eyes briefly. 2 credits. The price of a decent meal? That's all. Her life was worth to these people. She thought of her sister Naya, sold 3 months ago to a factory ship. She thought of her mother's last words, "Stay strong, little star. Your size doesn't determine your worth. Going twice. Wait." A new voice cut through the chatter, deep and surprisingly calm. "I invoke Article 47 of the Galactic Labor Protection Act." The room fell silent. Zira's eyes snapped open, searching for the speaker. In the back corner, barely visible in the shadows, stood a human male. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of stillness that spoke of military training. His hand remained raised as murmurs of confusion swept the crowd. Auctioneer fumbled with his tablet. Article ... 47. That's protective custody. "Sir, this is a standard labor auction, I'm aware," the human said, stepping into the light. "I post bond for protective custody. She walks free, not sold." "That's impossible." The Cathari trader snarled. "I have bid already." The human's gray eyes never left Zira's face. Article 47 supersedes auction proceedings for beings under protection, age, or circumstances. Check your legal database. Officials scrambled too. "Verify the obscure law?" Zira stared at the stranger who'd just changed everything. Marcus Vale had been watching the auction for 20 minutes, cataloging faces and prices with the methodical attention of someone who'd seen too much cruelty. The human cargo inspector kept to the shadows, his weathered dock coat blending with the grimy walls of sublevel 9. This wasn't his first time invoking Article 47, and it wouldn't be his last. The Silvani girl on the platform caught his attention, not because of her obvious distress, but because of what she wasn't doing. She wasn't begging. She wasn't trying to make herself appear larger or more valuable. She simply stood there with a dignity that the crowd's mockery couldn't touch. When the bidding stalled at 2 credits, less than the cost of his morning coffee, Marcus felt the familiar tightness in his chest. The same feeling that had driven him to memorize every obscure protection law in the Galactic Labor Code after leaving military service. "Article 47, he repeated as the auctioneer's assistant frantically scrolled through legal files. Subsection C specifically covers beings under duress who appear to be victims of trafficking. I'm posting the standard protective bond of 50 credits. The Cathari trader's scales flushed angry orange. "This is outrageous. I bid fair and legal." "Your bid was for ownership," Marcus replied evenly. "Mine is for protection. Different legal framework entirely." A security droid wheeled forward, its scanner light sweeping over Marcus's identification chip. "Marcus Vale, Cargo Inspector, 3rd Class, Nexus Port Authority. Legal status verified. Financial capacity confirmed. The auctioneer looked like he'd swallowed something sour. Sir, while technically legal, Article 47 requires the subject's consent to protective custody. All eyes turned to Zira. Marcus could see the calculation in her violet gaze as she weighed her options. Trust a stranger who'd just spent 50 times the highest bid to free her, or accept ownership by someone who'd valued her at the price of a snack. I accept protective custody, she said clearly, her voice carrying despite its softness. The crowd erupted in complaints and curses, but Marcus was already moving forward. He pulled a credit chip from his pocket and slid it across the payment. Scanner. The transaction completed with a soft chime, and the restraints around Zira's wrists clicked open. She rubbed the circulation back into her hands. Why? She asked. Because someone should, he replied simply. You have choices now. Walk out with me, and I'll help you get documentation and work. Or take the bond certificate and go your own way. No strings either direction, the guard started to object, but Marcus's steady gaze stopped him cold. Years of dealing with dock disputes had given him a presence that discouraged arguments. Zira stepped down from the platform, her movements careful but not timid. She barely reached Marcus's chest, but she carried herself like someone much taller. I'll come with you, she decided. For now, fair enough. Marcus nodded. Let's get you out of here. As they walked toward the exit, the crowd parted reluctantly. The Cathari trader spat something venomous in his native tongue, but Marcus ignored him. He'd heard worse from better beings. Outside in the station's main corridor, Zira took her first free breath in months. The recycled air had never tasted so sweet. What happens now? She asked. Marcus adjusted his pace to match her shorter stride. Now we get you registered as a free citizen, find you a place to stay, and figure out what you want to do with your life. Just like that. Just like that, Marcus confirmed. Welcome to your new beginning, Miss Zira, she said. Is Zira. Welcome to your new beginning, Zira. Marcus's quarters occupied a corner of residential block C, modest but clean. Zira followed him through corridors that hummed with the station's life families arguing through thin walls. Children laughing in play areas, the comforting sounds of ordinary existence. After months in holding cells and transport cages, the normalcy felt surreal. Not much, Marcus said, palm scanning his door open. But it's secure, and it's mine. The apartment was spartanly furnished but spotless. A kitchenette lined one wall. A bed occupied another corner, and in a small sitting area faced a viewport showing the starfield beyond. Nexus Prime. What struck Zira most was the absence of locks on interior doors and the presence of real windows. Bathrooms there. Marcus pointed to an open doorway. Clean towels in the cabinet, water's unlimited station perk. He moved to the kitchenette and began pulling out provisions. When did you last eat? Zira couldn't remember. Time had blurred. During the auctions, a haze of transport shuttles and holding pens. Yesterday, maybe? Marcus set a protein bar and a cup of water in front of her. Start with this. Your stomach needs to remember how to process food. He settled into a chair. Across from her, careful to keep the table between them. Ground rules. This is your space now too. I sleep on the couch. You lock the bathroom door if you want. You leave if you want. No questions, no guilt. She studied his weathered face, looking for deception or hidden motives. His gray eyes remained. Steady, patient. What do you want in return? Nothing you don't choose to give, Marcus replied. I do this because the alternative is unacceptable, full stop. The protein bar tasted like cardboard and salvation. As sugar hit her bloodstream, Zira felt her mind clearing for the first time in weeks. You've done this before? 7 times in the past 2 years, Marcus confirmed. Article 47 exists for a reason. Most people just don't know about it. Happened to the others? 2 got jobs on station and stayed. 3 took transport to their homeworlds. 1 joined a freight crew. 1, ... double quotes. Marcus paused. 1 chose to go back to the life she knew. Bad choice, but hers to make. Zira absorbed this information while she ate. Marcus moved around the small space with practiced efficiency, pulling bedding from a storage compartment and setting up the couch for himself. Everything about his actions spoke of routine, of a system refined through repetition. "The shower works," he said without looking at her. "Hot water for 20 minutes before the recycler kicks in. Fresh clothes in the closet, they'll be too big, but we'll fix that tomorrow." When Zira emerged from the bathroom 40 minutes later, clean for the first time in months, she found Marcus reading on a tablet while soup simmered on the heating unit. He'd changed into civilian clothes, simple pants, and a soft shirt that made him seem less intimidating. "Better?" he asked, looking up briefly before returning to his reading. Much. The borrowed shirt hung to her knees like a dress, but it was. "Clean and warm, Marcus?" "Yeah, thank you." He set down the tablet and met her eyes. "You don't owe me gratitude, Zira. You deserved basic decency. The fact that it took 50 credits to provide it is a failure of the system, not a favor from me." She curled up in the room's single armchair, pulling her knees to her chest. Outside the viewport, ships moved like distant stars against the darkness. "What happens tomorrow?" "Tomorrow we get you a citizen identification card. After that, we find you work if you want it. Station always needs people who can think and problem solve. And if I can't find work..." Marcus ladled soup into 2 bowls. "Then we keep looking until you do. No time limits, no pressure." For the first time in months, Zira felt the tight knot of fear in her chest begin to loosen. 3 weeks later, Zira stood before a bank of cargo manifests in Nexus Prime's main docking bay. Her violet eyes scanning columns of data with laser focus. The supervisor, a gruff Centaurian named Jorok, watched skeptically as she flagged inconsistencies. With quick, precise marks. "That shipment?" Zero pointed to a highlighted entry. "Manifest says 200 units of medical supplies, but the weight calculation is wrong for standard pharmaceutical packaging. Someone's either lying about contents or quantity." Jorak checked her math twice before grudgingly nodding. "Security'll want to inspect that one." He made a note on his tablet. "What else?" "Container 47B has a duplicate serial number with a shipment that cleared customs yesterday. Either it's a clerical error or someone's trying to run the same cargo." Through twice, Zira's small fingers traced the relevant lines. "And this luxury goods manifest has pricing that doesn't match current market rates. It's understated by about 30%. In her first week, Zira had identified more discrepancies than the previous inspector had found in 6 months. Her Sylvani heritage gave her exceptional pattern recognition, and her size allowed her to literally get inside some of the smaller cargo containers for physical verification. What had been seen as a disadvantage in the auction house proved invaluable. In legitimate work, it's not bad, Jorak admitted, which for him was high praise. Break time. Port back in 20. Zira made her way to the small cafe on the dock's upper level, where Marcus waited with 2 cups of tea. This had become their routine. He worked the morning shift on crane operations. She worked cargo verification, and they met for the midday break. "How's the tyrant treating you?" Marcus asked, as she sat down. "Jorak's warming up to me. Today he only called me midget twice instead of his usual 5 times. Zira wrapped her hands around the warm cup. "I think I caught someone trying to smuggle rare metals disguised as industrial equipment. Good catch. That'll make security happy." Marcus studied her face, noting the confidence that had replaced the wariness of 3 weeks ago. "Got something?" "For you?" He slid a small keycard across the table. "Apartment 7G in Block D. It's yours if you want it." Zira stared at the card. "Marcus, I can't afford you can. Your wages for the past 3 weeks, minus basic living expenses, covers the deposit and first month's rent. After that, you're on your own financially." He leaned back in his chair. "It's a studio, but it has a real bed and a viewport. More importantly, it's yours." The keycard felt heavier than it should in Zira's palm. For weeks she'd been living in Marcus's spare room, which he'd insisted on giving her while he slept on the couch. The arrangement had worked, but she'd always known it was temporary. "Are you tired of having a roommate?" she asked, trying to keep her tone light. "Quite the opposite," Marcus said quietly. "But you need to know you can make it on your own. Having that knowledge changes everything about your choices going forward." Zero understood. As long as she was dependent on his kindness, she couldn't be truly free. The apartment represented something more than shelter. It was proof of her own capability. I'll take it, she decided. But I want to cook dinner for you tonight, as a thank you. Marcus smiled, the expression transforming his usually serious face. I'd like that. That evening, in the small kitchen of her new apartment, Zira prepared a traditional Sylvani meal, while Marcus helped by staying out of her way and providing commentary on station gossip. The domestic normalcy felt precious and fragile, like something that could be lost if acknowledged too directly. To new beginnings, Marcus raised his cup in a toast. Two choices, Zira corrected, clinking her cup against his, outside her new window. The stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, indifferent to the small victory being celebrated in apartment 7G. 6 months had passed since the auction house, and Zira barely recognized the person she'd been. Standing in the main cargo bay, she directed a team of inspectors with quiet authority, her reputation for catching fraud having spread throughout the station. Her personal quarters had evolved from a sparse studio into a cozy home filled with plants that thrived under artificial light, and books on trade law that she studied in her spare time. Inspector Zira called Commander Torres, the station's security chief. We need you to look at something. The case that had summoned her was the biggest smuggling operation in Nexus Prime's history. Artifacts being moved through legitimate shipping channels by falsifying manifests and bribing dock workers. Zira's analysis had been instrumental in unraveling the network, and her testimony would be crucial in the prosecution. It's outstanding work, Torres said after reviewing her findings. Command wants to offer you a position with station security, detective track specialized in financial crimes. It comes with a significant pay increase and advanced law enforcement training. The offer represented everything Zira had never dared dream of during her months of captivity: respect, authority, a career that valued her mind over her physical limitations. She should have been ecstatic. Instead, she felt oddly hollow. That evening, she found Marcus in his usual spot at the dock cafe, working his way through a stack of maintenance reports. He looked up as she approached, and his expression immediately grew concerned. Something wrong? You look like someone died. Station security offered me a detective position, she said, sliding into the chair across from him. Marcus set down his tablet. That's incredible, Zira. Detective at your age, after 6 months? That's practically unheard of. I know. She stared at her hands. It's everything I should want, but you don't want it. It wasn't a question. After months of friendship, Marcus had learned to read her moods with unsettling accuracy. Zira appreciated that he never pushed for explanations she wasn't ready to give. I keep thinking about that night in the auction house, she said finally. How everyone looked at me and saw only limitations. Now they look at me and see only my abilities. But both views are incomplete. Marcus waited, letting her work through her thoughts. The detective job would mean prestige, but it would also mean leaving this. She gestured around the cafe, encompassing the docks, the everyday bustle of cargo and commerce. Leaving the work that feels right, not just impressive. And, Marcus prompted gently. Zira met his eyes. And leaving you? The words hung between them, carrying weight beyond friendship. Over the months, their professional relationship had deepened into something neither had been willing to name. Marcus had never pressed, never assumed, but the connection had grown regardless. Zira, Marcus said carefully, you can't make career decisions based on, I'm not, she interrupted, making it based on what kind of life I want to build. And I want to build it here, doing work that matters, with people who matter to me. Marcus reached across the table and covered her small hand with his larger one. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Zira turned her palm up, threading their fingers together. I spent months having choices made for me. Oh, I want to make the ones that feel right, not just the ones that look good on paper. The next morning, Zira declined the detective position, and instead proposed something different. A new civilian role, focused on cargo integrity and fraud prevention, working closely with both security and the docking authority. It would combine her analytical skills with her practical experience, and it would keep her working alongside Marcus. Commander Torres looked skeptical. That's a step down from what we offered. No, Zero corrected politely. It's a step in the direction I choose. 6 months later, she watched Marcus coordinate a complex docking procedure while she verified the accompanying manifests. Zero reflected on the strange path that had brought her here. She'd been sold for 2 credits and saved by 50. She'd found her strength not in becoming someone else, but in becoming fully herself. Hey, Inspector, Marcus called over the comm. Want to grab dinner after shift? Zero smiled, checking another cargo manifest with practiced efficiency. Always, she replied. Some choices she'd learned were worth making again and again.